everybody, it's Romania Black. So we're on episode 8 of Monster. 8's my lucky number, so maybe this episode will be really awesome, and we'll be happy and full of sunshine and rainbows, and nothing bad or of consequence will go down. Or at least I'm hoping so, for Tenma's sake. Oh my gosh, last episode, things went crazy. They went off the rails. Tenma getting like hoodwinked by them detectives trying to kidnap him and Nina, and then them jumping off the bridge, and then Nina going her own direction, and it's just, she's left now, and Tenma doesn't know where she is. We don't know if she's going after Johan, if she's going into hiding. She's trying to figure stuff out. We don't know where Johan is and how much he knows. We don't know the influence that he has. And Tenma's put in a very rough place because, yeah, he can't just go to the police now and ask for help because he doesn't know which of the police are working with Johan and which are not. Now, Tenma doesn't know this, but I think we, the audience, are led to believe that Lunge is not working with Johan. Obviously. I think we're led to believe that Lunge is not associated with Johan or any of this because he thinks possibly, I believe that Lunge thinks that Tenma is involved and could possibly be the monster in all of this, and he's trying to crack the code. We'll see, right? But it's just, things went off the rails in the last episode. Moore's dead. The two foster parents are dead. Nina is MIA, and Tenma is just left with a note and 2 sandwiches to figure out what to do now. And so that's where we're at. So I've decided after thinking a while that I may have to record ahead because the spring semester teaching wise for me is going to be very busy, as is all the shows coming up in January. January is going to be a crazy month. So I may watch ahead. However, I do want to say this, and I do this with nearly any show, I do want to keep the discussion in the comments if we can. If you want to talk about stuff that happens later on in the series, just please tag it for me. Just be like, Romania, don't read until you get to episode such and such, or be like, Romania, don't read, spoilers, and then skip a whole bunch of lines and then talk about it there. But otherwise, I kind of want to, if you want to converse with me in the discussion, in the comments section, I do want to talk just about this current episode, because I've had people in the past be like, hey, where are you at with your reactions? And I did this one time. I said, oh, I'm like 3 episodes ahead. And someone was like, so when this happens, and I was like, I've not got to that yet. And they spoiled me because they didn't realize that it occurred in the episode after I meant. And I was like, are you kidding? So I don't want to talk about things that haven't happened yet in the reactions just for that reason, because I've been spoiled. I've been jaded. I can't go back now, and I don't want to do it. On Patreon, it's a little bit harder because the comment section on Patreon doesn't really let you skip a lot of lines, or at least when I see the comments, it doesn't. So in the Discord, black box away. It'll be like a government document. It's fine, but I may have to watch ahead, and I may not. That's the thing too. I may tell you all in this video I'm going to watch ahead, and then schedule-wise it just doesn't happen. So, but my goal is to try to watch a little ahead to curb spoilers, because I'm so paranoid of being spoiled, because this series is so mysterious, and they don't give you a lot of clues. They give you little breadcrumbs to try to piece everything together, and I'm like, where does this go now? So you all can sit back in your chairs behind your mugs of hot cocoa and coffee and be like, Romania, what a fool. As I make a fool of myself with my theories and whatnot. So that's what we're here for, right? But I love this series so far. We're only 8 episodes in, and I feel like it's kicked off. We're going, and now it's like, what's going to happen now? I don't know. So with that being said, I am really excited to dive into this episode and see what we get. So we'll see, right? But in any case, we are going to start Monster, episode 8. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's find out. How dare you, show? How dare you? How dare you? You dare to give us that tease of an ending in the last minute. You dare to give us that after giving us so much recap in this episode. It feels a bit intentional. What it feels like is that they didn't have enough material to have a clear cut off in the span of 22 minutes. They needed to show all the stuff that we got in this episode, but they didn't have enough. They didn't want to get into like the meat of the next episode, because I'm sure we're going to flash back and find out, where did he get the gun? What's the deal with the killing still happening? What's been going on the last 5 months? Everybody thinks he's a killer. So I feel like they didn't have enough content with the stuff with Eva and him to make a full episode. But in the same vein, they would have too much content if they showed any more to us. So they did a lot of recap and then just managed to cut off this episode. Because up until episode of the time skip, I was like, well, we've got stuff to talk about, but I don't know how long of a discussion this is going to be. And then they dropped that bombshell on us in the last minute. And I was like, oh, well, hell. Figures, right? Figures. But man, Eva Hyndman, what a complicated character. She's more complicated. The whole time I was finishing my Werthers and getting whiteboard coon set up, I was like, she is a lot more complicated than I originally gave her credit. And I think that's a testament to the show, because we were talking about this in the Discord with Moorer and Becker, that you have these side characters who end up being extremely fleshed out. And this entire series, I think even in the comment section, it's been said too, this entire series, there's so many little minor characters so far that we've met that you only see them for like an episode and then they're gone, or you move on from them. But they're so complex and interesting in that little amount of time that we know them. So Eva being a more central character of the story, it only makes sense that we'd get more angles to her and to everything about her. But she's she's a complicated character. She's frustrating. She's very frustrating, because I was starting to feel like, dang girl, I feel what you're going for. I kind of get it now. You were a hoe, but now you're self-aware that you're a hoe. And you're trying to start anew. And then it's like, and it's so funny because you kind of understand where Tenma's coming from, but then you understand where she's coming from, but then you understand where Tenma's coming from, but then you understand where she's coming from. And it's like, complicated, very complicated. So I want to kind of put Eva, Eva over here, because she's our character that we really get some focus on in this episode, called Pursued, which fits pretty accurately given that it's about Tenma being pursued, not only by Eva, but by the police as well, and possibly by Johan as well. So what can we do? I want to put on here too of where we're at. I want to put Tenma here because where he's at in all of this. Eva and Tenma are kind of in different places in this episode for sure. But also I wanted to make a pretty big note here, because at this point in the series, because Lunge is pretty much like, I want to find you and convict you because he's suspicious. Lunge reads a lot like, and I've made this comparison before, he reads a lot like L from Death Note. And I don't want to spoil Death Note. I don't. But I feel like it's in the zeitgeist enough people at least know kind of who L is. But L's kind of a detective character in that series. And without spoiling anything, L is extremely pragmatic, very objective, like not getting my emotions involved. I want to solve the case. And Lunge seems like that as well, to a very realistic degree. Like he's just like, look, I'm not developing any attachments to anybody. I just want to do my job and solve the case. And he's very task oriented. He's like, it's a cold case. It's not solved yet. Let's get it done. But so I want to make note of what is suspicious. And I kind of did that a little bit last episode, but I was trying to figure out like, what's a better way to word it? And this is kind of the better way. What's suspicious? And then what has the alibi? Like what is suspicious or that we know is proven? There's not a lot proven in this series, which is kind of the crazy part. It's like, well, if you're Lunge's character, looking at this from the outside perspective, there's so many things here that I'm like, Tenma, these are red flags. And I don't know. It's just like, it's a red flag. I'm like, what are you doing that for? Why are we doing this? It's interesting. Okay, but this episode, fascinating. Because we start back, I was saying it during the OP, we're starting back here with this letter that Nina Tenma does not, he questions what she's doing, but he never attempts to go find her or retrace her steps, which we as the audience would be like, what would he even do? Where would he even start? What leads could he go off of? He doesn't have any leads. He knows he can't go to the police, but he doesn't go to that interview with the people to get information out. He doesn't do that. So curious. But so I guess we know I guess what I'm going to add here is what the audience knows. What the audience knows and how it looks to Lunge. Sounds like his own detective series, How It Looks to Lunge. Only on CW on 6 p.m. You know. So how we, the audience, see Nina's letter is we see Nina's letter as just a way for escape, right? It's a way for her to get away. She's like, she wants to get out of there. She can't take it right now. She's like, no, I don't know how to deal with this. But she wants Tenma not to follow her and be like, look, I know it's not your fault. Don't come after me. Just, I got to go do my thing now and take care of me. Maybe one day I'll see you again. But if this letter was ever found, this is really, really suspicious. Lunge could take this a whole different, because what it's suggesting is that the letter paints Tenma as right and innocent. But it's so bizarre, right? Because it's a bizarre letter. It comes across like, I don't know how else to, it's so weird to describe, but it's just, it's weird. It's like, it just seems like a letter that you would get written to you. You would want written to you by a victim. You would want a victim to write this exact letter being like, you were right. You are on the nose. Everything's about you is okay. Just keep on saving lives, doctor. I believe in you. Here's some sandwiches, these 2 sandwiches. Now go save the day. Like, it's the most optimistic letter you could possibly want to receive. And we, the audience, know that, yeah, Tenma wasn't there. He's at the police station, so he probably didn't do anything to Nina. She probably did leave this letter behind and disappeared. It's kind of weird that she wrote this letter when she seemed pretty, like, freaked out and traumatized when he left her, but I guess she figured things out and got all better. But then there's another part of you that's like, what if he actually, I don't know. And I know people in the comments are going to be like, you're overthinking this. Let me overthink, because I'm having a lot of fun with it, right? Because I have this crack theory that what if Tenma is actually a killer and he murdered her, and this was like the way he's tricking his brain to thinking it's okay. So let's just do Bizarro theory. Bizarro suspicious theory is that Tenma is actually a killer and Nina's gone, and this was the letter that he left behind to make himself look innocent. This is Bizarro world theory. And then what we, the audience, know is the actual theory that Tenma is not a murderer. She's not dead. He just found this letter from her, and it just happens to paint him in a decent light. Okay. But to Lunge, that letter would seem suspicious. I feel like Lunge would be like, what kind of traumatized girl would leave you a letter being like, oh yes, doctor, you were totally correct. Here's some sandwiches. I just went on my merry way. It does seem suspect, but we, the audience, know that Tenma is just like, I don't know. It is curious, though, that he doesn't go after her again, which I guess he realized. He's like, well, she said what she painted me in a good light. I guess we're fine. And then we cut to him with the sandwiches. And he asks, he's like, where are you now? He's like, what do you intend to do? Do you want to try to kill him again? And he's like, I can't stop her. He's like, I'm the one that brought him back to life. So I have no, and I guess that's where he's coming from, is he's like, I have no right to get in her way because it's my fault he's still around. So he's like, she tried to kill him once. I brought him back. I really have no right to stop her from trying to kill him a second time. But then that's where Nina ends. So Nina's MIA. We don't know where she is. We, the audience, assume that she's gone on her way either to go into hiding or to plot something against Johan. But I'm like, she's a 20-year-old girl that she doesn't know anything. She has no detective skills. She has no, she's not a doctor. She's not a detective. Like, what is she gonna do? How's that gonna go down? What is this about? I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but it's curious. So anyway, we go back to him doing surgery, right? And it's so fascinating. I thought that this was a flashback to him giving surgery to Johan. I thought we were going to flash back to Johan's surgery and go from there. But no, this is a brand new surgery. So he took a leave He took a leave of absence. Okay. He took a leave of absence after Junker's death. Okay. Now, we know that he has been a doctor during the other murders. That's the thing. He does have an alibi. He's been a doctor. He's been there at the hospital the whole time for the other couple's murders. So there is a clear alibi there. So that kind of defeats the whole Bizarro theory. He has actually been there doing doctory things the last 9 years. So when these murders started to happen with Johan, Tenma does have a very valid excuse why he would not be involved in them. So I do think that Lunge may be grasping at straws if he tries to convict Tenma of the other murders. I think there is a little bit of like, are you sure? But Lunge just wants to solve the Heidelberg Castle thing. He's like, I just want to do one case at a time, and this is my lead on this one, and I want to follow it. So I don't want to look at the surgery stuff again. I'm kind of phobic to needles. That stuff kind of freaks me out. But they have this, the surgery gets over, and they are like they're all praising him. They're like, it was his first surgery after his extended leave. But the talents of this genius keep growing, and all he says is, it's over. And that in itself, it's over means a lot of different things. So for Tenma, he just, being a doctor does not have the same weight. Because of that trauma that he's known that he saved Johan. Like that's traumatized him, and he's like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. He's like, I've got a talent for it, but I don't know if I can keep doing this because every surgery that I'm going to have now on somebody's skull is going to remind me of Johan, and I'm going to feel bad and feel like I'm bringing someone back to life that I shouldn't be. So he's a bit traumatized by it. Yeah. So when he says it's over, at the time I was like, is he quitting being a surgeon? Which he was. That was the foreshadowing of, I'm going to quit this position. But it can have a double meaning. You can look at it as him saying, I'm quitting being a surgeon. But you can also look at it saying, I'm quitting, like, this surgery's over. Thank God it's done. I don't have to worry about it anymore, right? And they were like, oh. And then he says it's nothing. So, okay. We, the audience, know that he is stressed after the surgery, right? We know that he's stressed from everything going on. But to the doctors, his actions could be strange, right? Like, oh, he was saying some strange things after that surgery. I don't even really know what he was talking about, but it was kind of weird, like out of the ordinary after these murders, that just got committed. So this episode called Pursued. So we go to the Heinemann house, right? And we see several things, like to just paint a picture of what's been going on. So the first thing we see are the flowers, the vase of the flowers that were knocked over, right? And the chair knocked over, which is curious. So we don't really get an explanation for that. We don't get an explanation, but we know that there's a chair and a vase knocked over. Like she's toppled the chair and something's happened with the vase of flowers that's knocked it over. We're not exactly sure what. And then she's already drained like one bottle of, can't exactly see what it is. It's Allen. Okay, it's Macallan. It's a Scotch whiskey. Okay. I was like, is it Allen or is there something else in the bottle? It's Macallan. They just couldn't show the whole thing for product placement purposes. They didn't want to show. They give us a glimpse of Werther's and they give us a glimpse of Macallan, which is a Scotch whiskey. Okay. So she's already drank a whole damn fifth of whiskey and she just drank 3 glasses of it straight. I like whiskey on the rocks, to be honest, but there ain't no way in hell that in one sitting I would drink 3 of those. No. You take like 1 glass and you nurse on that the whole night. and then you're set, right? Oh, yeah. So she's basically alcoholic. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So she's an alcoholic. And the past 9 years, she's had 3 divorces. 3 marriages that ended in divorce. She wasn't even married to Tenma, but she said 3 marriages that have ended in divorces. And she is convinced that these men just want her money. And she still likes Tenma. She still is in love with him. It says something that she kept a photograph of him, right? That she kept the photo of him throughout everything. That's the thing. So she's kept the photo of him this whole time. And we see like she has like the picture frame and the glass falls on the ground and everything. And she just looks so disheveled. Also, wearing that kind of like that dress shirt. Very 90s, but no. She's not really aged too much, honestly. She honestly, like, aside from the alcoholism, she looks better in 9 years later than she did at the beginning. I think the longer hair suits her. But she very much is still in love with him. And that says something, too, because, like, if you keep a photo of you and a guy that you were engaged to in a picture frame in your living room, I would, if I were your spouse or your partner, I'd be like, hey, you still have that photo. Is this gonna be a real thing, or can you like get rid of that photo because you should move on from that? But she can't move on. That's the thing. She can't move on from Tenma. She has realized the errors of her ways and that she's made she's go off Arrested Development. She's like, I've made a huge mistake, and like I should not have left him when I did. She's like, that was a dumb move, and you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And she realizes that she still cares about him. And God, the symbolism. Can we talk about the symbolism of the picture with the cross through Tenma and her eyes and the scotch glass next to it? I can't, y'all. It's too good. And there's like a halo of shadow from the glass. The visual symbolism. It's great. So Lunge shows up as she pours herself another glass. So the butler's like, nah, she's not here. She's resting. And Lunge's like, no, I just need to ask her a few questions. And they're like, you need to make an appointment. And he's like, no, I'm going to ask her. And I love that she's just visibly like, why is this happening? And the butler's like, I'm real sorry. But it's the police, and Lunge comes in. Now, at this point, Lunge introduces himself to her. And so Lunge, of course, has an amazing memory and remembers back to when he helped her on her father's case for him dying. She doesn't quite remember him at first, but then he kind of jogs her memory and she's like, oh, you. She's like, Lunge. For the record, her voice actress in this entire scene was great. Her voice actress, like the inflection that she does for a lot of her lines, I was like, oh yeah, that was really good. But she's like, Horst. Horst is her butler. And she leaves him. And Lunge is as polite and congenial as he can be. He's just like, why, thank you. Like, Lunge is trying to pass off being not charming, but just cordial as he comes in to ask her things. And she's like, oh, I do remember you now. As she, like, downs that glass of scotch, she's like, you were just a useless detective who couldn't even close that case. Which, I like that she throws some shade. She's like, oh, yeah, you didn't solve my father's murders. Gee, thanks. What have you come here for? Like, trying to be like, get out of here. I have nothing for you. What do you want with me now? And Lunge makes a few notes. He says that after your father's death, you've managed to maintain this place. He's like, no, I believe your furnishings are all even grander than it was before. So basically making a note that she has spent some of the inheritance. Which, that's her business. If she wants to buy some lavish things with daddy's money, it's hers now. I guess she can. What else is she going to do with it? Just put it in a fund? Yeah, we don't know if she has a kid with any of those marriages. It's not been brought out. I'm kind of 50-50. I'm torn. There's a part of me that thinks that maybe she does have a kid, but then there's another part of me that's like, no, she would have brought the kid up to Tenma, wouldn't she have? Maybe not, though. So, I don't know. I don't want to know. No spoilers, please. We'll find out if she's got a brat or not. I'd imagine he would not be the best, considering the home life. There is a picture behind her in a frame, but we can't see what it is. She's like, have you come to see how wealthy I've become with my inheritance from my father and the settlements from my divorces? Meaning that she seems like the type that made him sign a prenup. I'm just saying. She seems like that type that took care of to make sure that they didn't, you know, just take half her money. Because, yeah, she seems like a prenup type because otherwise she married 3 times. That would have, like, halved her inheritance 3 ways. But she doesn't seem to be poor, so curious. I like that Lunge doesn't question about the frame. The vase, the frame and the vase, he doesn't question about. He looks down at the frame and is like, she's clearly tied to Tenma. I need to come back and question her later. Now's just not a good time. But he doesn't ever ask about the vase or the toppled chair. And you would think a detective like Lunge, at least I almost wish we'd gotten some like internal monologue from him, like some Sherlock Holmes, like him deducing why things are like that. But we don't get that because he's not Sherlock, he's Lunge. If you see anything you want, please help yourself to it. She's like, you want it, take it. I'm fine as long as I have my liquor. She's like, I have all this stupid stuff in this house and my only vice is having this liquor. So then Lunge is like, okay, I'm going to get down to brass tacks. I want you to identify this tie and tell me you got it from. And she's like, necktie. And he's like, have you seen it before? And she clearly knows what it is. She does. She knows what that necktie is the moment she looks at it. And at first, I was a little confused because I was like, Lunge, who cares about the necktie? I was like, what does that have to do with anything? But he says that it's a very special necktie that's only made in certain stores. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's the thing. Tenma, one thing to know about Tenma from this is that he is not materialistic. He's not materialistic at all. And also something else to note with it is he is not afraid to sever ties, literally sever ties, womp womp, with Eva. Yeah, he's not afraid to do that because it was a tie that was given to him as a gift from her. It was expensive. It was from a very specialty store. So him just using it in the moment to handcuff that guy with the tie behind his back while they escaped says 2 things. One, it says that Tenma is not materialistic enough to care about ditching his expensive tie. And 2, it means he doesn't care that Eva gave it to him. And maybe he kept the tie because it was sentimental. Maybe he kept the tie out of respect that she spent the money for it. But in the end, he was okay with ditching it. It didn't mean anything to him. He was not attached to it in the end. So, or he valued Nina's life more than that attachment to that tie, for what it's worth. But she does not give him away. She's like, who knows where it's from? And she clearly does know where it's from, but she says, I found your name on the list of people that have bought it. And she's like, as I said, what about it? And he says, did you purchase this and give it to someone? He's like, because this plays a key role in another murder, you see. And she's like, a murder? The way that her voice actress said a murder was so good because she was just like, you're suspecting Tenma of killing someone? And he just looks at her like, you know who you gave this tie to, so I just need you to say. So I can indict him. I can bring him into custody if you tell me that you gave it to him, because that's all the evidence he needs. He just needs enough substantial proof to bring Tenma in. And her admitting that it's his tie, he can be like, yes, this is enough evidence. Let's get him. That's all he needs, is for her to say that it was a gift to Tenma. And she really has nothing to lose by saying that, except she believes that there's a chance they can get back together. And so she's like, well, I can't if he's behind bars. So she's like, who knows? I've given countless gifts to men, so I can't remember them all. Which is a very valid excuse. She may not. Anybody would believe that, right? The men who approach me are after my money. And Tenma's like, please think carefully. I like that Tenma's like, Lunge is like, I know that you gave this to Tenma. He's like, please think carefully. And she's like, I said I don't remember. They're all after my money. There isn't a single person who truly loves me. So that's her argument. She's like, no one truly loves me. And she's realized that Tenma didn't love her for her money. Tenma loved her for her. Somehow he did. I am so curious how they met and how she was when they first met. But she's like, nobody loves me. And that's why I took each one of them to cleaners with each divorce. She's like, yeah, none of them love me. And I could take them to the cleaners because none of them can prove it. So she's like, all 3 of them. Good for them. And he's like, do you want something too? And Lunge's like, okay, we're done here. That's enough. He's like, no. And she's like, just remember, it'll cost you. And Lunge is very disappointed. He has that expression like the disappointed parent that's like, fine, you don't want to admit it. You don't. It's like he's the disappointing parent that knows that the kid's lying to him, but he's like, you know what? I'm gonna let you come to me later. I'm not gonna do this right now. It's like, no, I'm out. Like that's what he comes across as, right? He's like, if you remember anything, please give me a call. And she's like, next time you come, bring a bottle of liquor. And he just looks at her, not with contempt or disgust, but just with like he just looks very exasperated. And then he sees the picture of them on the ground. And he says nothing. He says nothing. He sees that picture of them and he's like, you're clearly defending him in this moment. We'll see what happens. He's like, I'm not done here. That's the expression. And she doesn't notice that he looked at the picture because she's pouring herself another glass. Also wants to make note that in the back against the window, there's a pattern on the carpet and there are little crosses on the pattern on the carpet. It seems like nothing, but with this show, everything's important. Everything. And it's red carpet too. Color blood. He says, excuse me. Okay. And she just pours herself another glass and downs it. Girl. God. And then she sees the photograph. And that's when she decides to go to the hospital. And her face actually softens there. And, there was a part of me in this first part of the episode that I was like, damn it. Yeah, she realizes that she did something bad. She realizes she messed up. She shouldn't have been a hoe. And now she's unhappy because she's been married 3 times. They didn't work out. And she realizes that Tenma actually loved her. And she shut the door in his face. And she's like, that was a mistake. And she had tried to repair it 9 years ago. And it just didn't work out. And she was like, I was young and stupid. And I threw away the best chance of a relationship I ever had. And she's like, well, I'm going to go rectify this. I'm going to go see him right now. Which she's like, I'm going to go see him right now. And we're just going to have a chat. And we're going to see if we can mend things. And it doesn't go well at all. So, Tenma is talking about all the patients and everything. And again, these patients, they're just ready for him to bolt. They're like, please don't leave, Dr. Tenma. Please stay here. And I want to go back to that part where he was talking to the one guy about his daughter getting married next month. And Tenma's like, well, it was because of not only me, but you. And the guy says, with you by my side, I feel like I can do my granddaughter's wedding as well as my daughter's wedding. And he says, you're an excellent doctor. Please stay. He's like, these patients are so afraid that even after 9 years that he's going to leave. And he just got back from an extended leave. So this guy's like, please don't leave us again. Like, your extended leave, we got a little worried there, Tenma. He's like, please stay here at this hospital. And Tenma's response, he's just like, Like, he doesn't reply or say, oh, I'm not leaving. And that's when they say he has a visitor. And so he's like, well, I've got to make my rounds now. I'm busy. Please turn them away. He's like, no, I don't have time to see them right now. And the nurse is like, well, I would, but you all got history, so maybe I don't want to be the one to turn her away. It's also the former director's daughter, so don't really know if I want to turn her away. And she looks, when he first sees her, she actually looks genuinely sincere. And that's kind of the crazy thing, is she doesn't look insincere. She looks genuinely like she wants to talk to him. And Tenma just looks like, well, shit, why is she here? And the moment we cut to the two of them sitting like by the atrium there, like looking outside, it's interesting that they're sitting there and she looks so like compassionate. She's like, well, it's been a while, Kenzo. He's having none of it. He's having none of her and none of it. And you can't blame him. But that's the crazy thing, right? That's the crazy thing, is that he has closed off his heart. He's closed off his heart, and there are no second chances with Eva. And you can't blame him. You can't blame him, because she completely broke his heart. And it would be so painful to go through that conversation, because even after that many years, it would be so painful, right? It would be so hard. And I'm like, ugh. I can't blame Tenma for turning her away. I can't, because I've done something very similar. I was in a relationship with a guy, and he broke it off, and it crushed my soul. And then years later, we kind of we became friends. We, kind of, had a friendship and everything. And he wanted to restart the relationship. And I was like, okay. And then after that, he kind of started getting wishy-washy. And I was like, oh, no, I can't do that again. And I had to call it off. And I was like, because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't deal with it. I was like, my heart was broken the first time. I didn't want it broke again. And it was just already getting to the point where I was like, I just can't. It was like, I felt like I was teeter-tottering. And so I kind of feel like Tenma does in this moment, where he's like, my soul was crushed once when you left me. And then when you came back, I couldn't do it. And he's like, it's not changed. He's like, I burned that bridge a long time ago. I can't go back. But you feel kind of bad for her a little bit, because she's trying to make an effort. She's like, hey, we've gone through a lot, right? And she honestly, until she completely turns into a hoe again when she gets mad at him, she really does seem sincere. And she's like, yeah, we went through a lot. My dad died, and I was in a really bad place. And she's like, I tried to get back with you, and you turned me down then. And granted, when he turned her down that first time, it was when he was just promoted, and he felt like she was taking advantage of him and using him, and was going right back to the start, and he couldn't take it. So I don't blame him, right? But she seems like after 9 years, she's kind of like, yeah, I realized those other guys, they sucked, and I made a mistake, and it'd be great if we could start over. And so she tries to be like, well, you've lost some weight. And he's like, well, so have you. You've lost some weight too, haven't you? Like, we're both kind of in dire straits. And she's like, so much has happened. She's like, you've heard the rumors, haven't you? And he's like, yeah. And she doesn't say anything about the tie. She sees the spring thing there, right? She sees the tree blooming. And she's like, oh, the spring, do you remember? 10 years ago in spring, we often went driving together. We were so young. You tried to swim in the river in that season. And she's like, and I hurriedly stopped you. And he's so done. Like, he just can't. He's just visibly frustrated. And he's like, I'm sorry, but I have to go. He's like, I haven't got time. That's so hard, because yeah, it's on the one hand, I totally get where Tim is coming from, where he's like, nope. He's like, I don't want my heart trampled on again. But he is kind of cold to her in this, right? He's a little bit cold, right? And he doesn't communicate his thoughts to her entirely, right? Because he doesn't come out and say, like, you ditched me all those years ago, and I can't trust you. Like, he doesn't say that to her. He should come out and say, he's just like, I don't have time for you right now. And she's just like, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you, to visit with you. What's wrong? Which is like, no, he doesn't say, hey, I've got to go see patients. I'll see you again some other time. He doesn't say that. He doesn't try to say, hey, let's talk another time. I got to go. He doesn't do any of that, which, again, he doesn't owe her anything. So that makes sense. But at the same time, he is a little bit cold to her here, because at this point, she's not said anything wrong. She's just reminisced and been like, hey, remember all these good times? Can we maybe start over? Or she hasn't even gotten to that part yet, and he's just done with her. So it's really hard, because I see where he's coming from, but then it's like, I would have maybe been a little bit more cordial. And he just leaves her, and she's kind of like, well, she's like, I want us to start over. And he's like, no. He's like, absolutely not. She's like, after 3 failed marriages, I finally realized the only one who truly loved me was you, Kenzo. And he's like, It's like, I can't. And he says, I'm sorry. But I wish he'd said more to her. I wish he'd said more to her. I wish he'd said, like, you crushed my heart and I can't trust you. I can't right now. Sorry. Like, I wish he'd given her a little bit more, right? Instead of assuming that she knows why. And she just, nope, she can't. Like, she got dressed up and she was like, please, Kenzo. And he says, I appreciate your feelings, but I just can't accept them. And I guess that's, there's nothing more for him to say. I guess that's enough. It just, damn, it sucks. It sucks because she seemed like she was, because, what did she have to gain, right? Up until she admits that she was going to blackmail him. Up until she makes that big boo-boo and does a really bad thing that you're like, well, no, damn it, we're back to square one, you hoe. Up until she does that, she really didn't have, any other reason. Like, she genuinely wanted to start over with him. She had no other reason to be there to go after him. But then when he says goodbye to her and he's going to leave her, and she's like, I didn't say anything. She's like, when the police came at this point, I was like, well, damn it, Eva, I was starting to like your character more, but then you go pull this shit. It's like, no. Then she starts to blackmail him and be like he owes her. She's like, I didn't tell him about the necktie, so she's like, there's something bad connected with that necktie of yours, isn't there? She's like, I'm sure it's the tie that I gave you. And she's like, if you do as I say, I'll keep quiet about it. And he is not there to play games. He's like, I have something I must do. And that's when he was like, I gotta go. I gotta go resign in this exact moment. Because I think he sees the writing on the wall. In that moment, Tenma's like, no. He's like, the moment she said that she knew about the necktie and that she wouldn't tell the police if he stayed with her, he's like, no, this girl's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And she is going to tell on me at some point because I know her. Because that's the thing. She's so wishy-washy and flaky that even though she's sincere, even though I felt kind of bad for her, at the end of the day, she's still flaky. And I'm like, Tenma, he kind of doesn't have a right to trust you because, yeah, if he does anything out of line with you, you're going to tell on him. And he's like, I don't want to deal with that. So, in the one hand, I almost wish he'd said it differently. But then on the other hand, I'm like, no, she cuckoo. Probably good that you got away. But I love that they're making her character more layered. She's not just some crazy drunk lady. She does genuinely have feelings for him. It's just unfortunate that the rest of the package is not good, right? So I just love at that moment he was like, I gotta go. I got a food in the oven. Bye. And she just is like, nope. She's been turned down twice now. And she just gets mad. And that's when she storms out after him in dim heels. She's like, well, in that case, I'll tell them everything. I'll tell the police about the necktie. And she yells it so that every resident in the hospital can hear her. She says, I'll tell them everything. The person who killed my father 9 years ago, I'll tell them that you did it. Which, granted, her saying, I'll tell them you did it, is not saying you did it. It's saying that to me you did. So I love the residents are like, what the hell? And that look on her face. And she goes and tells Lunge everything. And he's like, I see. So he's like, bring Dr. Tenma in as a person of interest. And they're like, well, there's not enough evidence in the Fortner couple and the Mora murders. They're like, we can't do that. He says, I'm talking about the killing at Heidelberg Castle. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we can get him on that, sir. It's like, ugh. So yeah, so Tenma, basically the necktie seems like it's tied, literally, to the murder of the gardener there. Now, we know that his alibi checks out, that him and Nina used the necktie to keep him at the castle, but they didn't kill him when they left. He died later at the hands of Johann. So we think. So, yeah. But to Lunge, he doesn't, that's not how it looks. It looks super suspicious. And clearly, if it's his necktie, they need to bring him in to question him. And so he asks for cooperation. He's like, this might allow us to solve a lot of murders. But I'm like, and she's just mad. Like, she's just mad at him. So, right here, it's in German. but it's basically his letter of resignation. So, the letter of resignation. Okay. Now, the letter itself, the letter of resignation, at this point, I feel like by this time, after that surgery, Tim has realized he can't keep being a surgeon. The whole Johan thing's haunting him. He wants to go find Johan. He wants to go find him. So he's like, I can't keep taking extended leaves. I need to just resign. And that's, to Tenma, that's the responsible thing to do. He's like, I need to resign so that people aren't relying upon me and thinking that I'll be there when I can't be there, and I need to go solve this thing on my own. Makes sense, right? But that looks kind of suspicious too, because it's like on the day that Eva yells out her statement to convict him, that's the day that he hands in the letter of resignation. So it's so suspicious, right? But I don't think Tim was even thinking about that, because he's our idealistic, naive doctor, right? And so I love when he answers his phone, he's like, yes, I'm me. I love his face. I'm going to get a screenshot of that and put it in the Discord. His face where he's like, yes, I'm me. That needs to be a damn meme where he's like, yes, I'm me. That's the funniest thing ever. That was so that translation was unintentionally hilarious. And he's like, Tenma's a murder suspect. Word travels fast. And then also, him getting the ride out of the hospital in the ambulance. The ride to escape. Tenma's like, I don't want to be arrested because I need to go find Johan. So this is just him getting the friendly ride. But to Lunge, that is evading police. That's just evading the police, right? And the thing about it is, that's so frustrating, is it's like Tenma, if he got taken in by Lunge, they've said in the cases, here's the thing that's so crazy, is that they just said in the detective station they don't have enough evidence to bring him in for the Fortner and Mora murders. They don't. And the Heidelberg Castle thing, you would think Tenma would be able to explain himself. But he doesn't want to waste time, one. And two, he doesn't know who in the police force is being manipulated by Johan. So he doesn't want to get in that situation where Johan knows he's there and people could get killed because he thinks maybe Johan is like after him. So, but it makes him seem so suspicious. So it's like, you get why Tenma avoids them, but then it's like, dude, if only you could, but he's so paranoid that there's so much influence by Johan within the police department. And it's so frustrating. Because I'm like, if you could just explain yourself, Tenma, if you had just gone with Lunge and them, let them question you, they don't have enough evidence to convict you, just do it, but he won't. So it's like, now you've evaded police, they've been looking for you for 5 months, and you've got a gun. This does not make you look good in the slightest. I'm like, Tenma! But yeah, what can he do? What can he do? It's just the circumstances so messed up. And I do love that when the police all came in, I kind of almost felt like the Matrix, like all the Agent Smiths coming in. That's what it felt like. It was so weird, just the animation of it. And I love the little wall that the people make, the little wall that the patients make. They're like, you won't get through us to get Dr. Tenma. See, that's the thing. Even through all of this, the patients still have faith in him, right? The patients have faith that he's innocent, but Tenma doesn't see that. He doesn't get to see that, right? So it sucks. And then Lunge is just like, what is going on? And they make it out of there, and all he can do is think back to everything that led up to this point, to the idea about the person he saved became this serial killer and left him like this. And he's like, nope. As he's getting away and leaving the hospital behind. So yeah, he's like, and there's a part of you that wonders, like, there's a part of you that wonders if Tenma believes he doesn't deserve to be a doctor anymore because he says as a doctor, his whole goal was to save people's lives. And so you wonder, like, does he think he doesn't even deserve to have that title anymore because of Johan alone? Probably. Something else that's kind of in that suspicious category as well is just the idea that he has all these harrowing thoughts, but then when he was talking to the patients, he hid it all. To that patient, he was just like, yeah, thank you, I did save your life. And then 5 minutes later, he's resigning because of his, like, guilt. It's like, it's interesting. I want to make note, when we get this 5 months later bit here, when we get this 5 months later, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of episode 1 of Banana Fish, where you have, like, the, oh my darling, or I guess maybe it's episode 5 or 6 when they go back to Cape Cod, and he's, like, singing in the truck, singing Clementine. That's what it reminded me of, like when the little truck appears. Made me think of Max from Banana Fish, if you've ever watched that series. But this guy here, he's got a truck, Tenma with him. He says, looks like another scorcher today. And he says, it's summer, but you're all bundled up. Aren't you hot? And he's like, oh, that paper's 3 days old. And he's got the trench coat and everything. They say this time a middle-aged couple in Verdun was killed. And the killer is a doctor. So here's where we're at this point. 5 months have passed, right? 5 months later. 5 months later, Johan's back to killing middle-aged couples. He's trying to lure Tenma out, right? So there's a middle-aged couple killed in Verdun. And the suspect is Tenma. Now, do I think that Lunge is out there saying Tenma is responsible for these killings? No, I think Lunge wants concrete evidence. But the whole town is like, the whole, area is like, well, this doctor suddenly resigned from his post, left the hospital amidst accusations that he was a murderer. And now these killings are still going on. It's human nature. Like, what if it was him? What if it was the doctor they didn't catch? And he's the one doing the killings. What if it's been him all along? This show, it's making us, the audience, be like, well, no, he's not the killer. But at the same time, in the back of your brain, there's also a tiny part of you where all of these pieces of evidence are like, well, damn it, Tenma, quit make us keep thinking you're not the killer. Why are you leaving these crumbs that point to you? Stop that. And so... But we assume he's not in Verdun, so he couldn't have killed that couple. It's likely Johan luring him in. Johan's like, come on, here's another couple I've murdered. You gonna come find me? And so, but he's grown out his hair and he's got the facial hair, so he's not as recognizable. And plus they're in Germany. He's Asian, so they probably stereotypically can't tell he's the same person. I'm sure there's a commentary about that as well. But he's like, didn't you said you're going to Verdun, didn't you? You know someone there? And then he's like, yeah. And we see Tenma, and he already looks like so jaded. Like, it's only been 5 months. And he looks jaded. He's like, I don't know if I can meet up with him or not, but I have to go there. And he's got a gun. And he's going to go find Johan. We assume it's Johan, right? We assume it's Johan that he's after. So, many questions. So what happened? What happened after he left the hospital? So in 5 months, what has happened? Not only with Tenma, but what's happened with the case? What's happened with Lunge? What's happened with the murders? When did they start back up again? Is this couple the first one that's happened since the Fortners? Is this the first one to start back up again with Johan? What's up with that? What's happened in the 5 months? Where did Tenma get the gun? In Japan, they have pretty strict gun laws. So who taught Tenma, or did anybody teach Tenma to shoot the gun? Because he's a surgeon, not a soldier, so did anybody teach him, or did he just get this gun and he's just gonna AG his way again? Banana Fish AG his way through this? What are we doing? And then what is his overall plan? I mean, I think his plan is to kill Johan. I think that his plan is to, as I drop my marker, I think his plan is to atone for his sins. And he's like, I need to do what Nina started in the first place. He's like, Nina killed him and I brought him back to life. He's a murderer and I need to be the one responsible for ending his life and taking back what should not have happened in the first place. So he's decided he's going to kill Johan and stop the killings. Okay. Sure. So yeah, I'm very curious. I feel like it's one of those things where we're going to get a flashback and find the answers to these questions. Hopefully in the next episode, we're going to flashback and figure all that out. I feel like that's what we're going to do, because usually a story like this does that kind of narrative pull. But there's so many questions like how, when, why, give us details show, that I'm really excited to see what will happen. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of recap in this episode, but it was nice to get some complex analysis of Eva and where her character's at. To figure out what Lunge is doing, to see him kind of in action. He's the very disappointed cop when you're not answering his questions. And he didn't do a lot of typing in this episode that we saw, so that was interesting. And then seeing where poor Tenma is. Tenma is now driven by this goal to get rid of Johan. So, and we're only 8 episodes in, just 62 to go. In this giant-ass quest. So yeah, I'm very curious though next episode to see what we get. So we shall see, but please no spoilers, but I'm excited to hear your comments down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about Eva, but I will see you all next week with episode 9 of Monster. Bye.